Well, imagine my shock. Conservatism is the new cancel culture. No, just kidding. It's always been. Hey, you're here with Goldberg. Today we're going to be talking about cancel culture and the Trapeze Act, which the Republicans and conservatives have gone through to somehow portray themselves as defenders of free speech and individual rights and don't go there, which is ridiculous. Obviously, you could go back to McCarthy. I'm not going to cover that here, though, because McCarthy is a little bit misunderstood. A lot of what he did was absolutely on point. His mannerism, his behavior probably went over the top just a tad. Nevertheless, if we just look in the last, I guess it'd be 30 years, the amount of gaslighting of Republicans, the attempts to deny the fact that they've been, in large part, the ones promoting this stuff. Because when I was a kid, I can still remember if you were a liberal, you were like, F censorship, controversial opinions are okay. We're not going to try to destroy someone's life over that. And conservatives were the ones that were advancing all this, draconian BS, to be perfectly honest. So not just politically, but also in terms of policy, conservatives have done a lot of damage that they're now complaining about with cancel culture. So here we have Bobby Martinez. He was governor of Florida, and he very famously tried to spank these black women. These are from 2 Live Crew, and he said they were violating obscenity laws and they should be prosecuted. And this is a big ordeal, right? And it's just funny again because the liberals were the ones that, no, it's just expression, it's no big deal. The Republican establishment are trying to shut these people down, not allow them to have, venues, concerts, blocking their CDs, that sort of thing. So again, times change, but people are very forgetful in politics, especially when it's beneficial to them. Phil Donahue, he was fired. He had a very popular talk show. He was fired and he was anti-war, and it was based upon a memo and a study done by Republicans that people were offended by you not supporting the war. And I remember this as a kid. It wasn't, okay, you support the troops, but you oppose the war. If you opposed the Iraq War, you hated America and hated the troops, which is kind of stupid because if you really are in favor of the troops, you would want the most minimal amount of military engagement, unless it's absolutely necessary, which Iraq was not. That's being pro-troops. I'm not sending them somewhere where they're going to be easier targets. But that was the Republican mantra. This whole ordeal, this is David Horowitz, who I kind of like some of the stuff he's done, but he was compiling these lists of radical professors, anti-war, anti-conservative, and a lot of the whole logic behind it was get people to expose them, potentially they lose their jobs in academia. Then we have this whole ordeal with the Dixie Chicks, and granted, they were still able to have some kind of career, but what happened is, I think it was the chick, the one at the top, with a piece on her stomach, and she said something like, George W. Bush is an idiot, and then people were calling into radio stations, you got to take them off the air. I think that was very unpatriotic. And they're having these rallies and destroying CDs. And, this is the type of behavior they would say, oh, that's just the left doing that now. But that was conservatism not too long ago. And don't just tell me those were rhinos. No, these were very socially conservative people, like in the Bible Belt, complaining about the fact that this great, strong American president who didn't destroy the country with his policies, oh, how dare you say something about him? Imagine that now. Imagine with Biden or Trump. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And then we have to discuss this whole dynamic here. So this is Helen Thomas. As I understand it, she was one of the entries on Yogi's traditional feminine wig towel wish list. But in any case, she had been a fixture in the White House press corps for decades, going back to, I believe, President Kennedy. She had taken her picture with Barack the Booty Obama for her birthday. He gave her some nice little cupcakes. And she was caught on video. This was back in 2010. And she said something attuned to, I think she was like, tell the Bhutanese to get the hell out of Nepal. And she said that the Bhutanese people controlled the U.S. government, controlled everything. They were running pretty much the United States of America. And as you might imagine, what was the response to that? Well, this is from the Breitbart article. Unfortunately, the comments are no longer there because they probably switched systems. I think they were using Disqus, or actually they're still using Disqus. But look at this last line. Maybe it's time for Helen's bosses to retire her to the home for crazy old anti-Bhutanese. So it's really, you get this sense that conservatives and Republicans have always been pushing this dynamic. In fact, what were some of the other, predictable responses in that regard? Well, here we go.
Just another example of the anti-Bhutanese policies of the left.
Excuse me, did you know that liberals are the real racists? So this is what conservatism does. And these are true conservatives, by the way. They love dogpiling if they can get someone destroyed who they don't like. And now they're turning around and whining about the fact that, oh, we're getting censored, oh, people are getting deplatformed. Well, guess what? Your political tactics have in large part contributed to that. Okay? This, winner takes all mentality. In fact, under Newt Gingrich in the 90s, that was when, unfortunately, the country really started going downhill, at least politically, because the Republicans could have practically written their check with Billy Boy Clinton. They could have gotten Social Security reform, Medicare reform, massive cuts, probably could have eliminated even a cabinet department itself. But they wanted to play the whole, if you don't give us everything, we're walking away. And they did the same with Obama. Obama said we can make some cuts, we can change Social Security. We're not going to accept any tax increases, even if it's just a little bit on the rich, because we have to have, and that's what the progressives have started adopting, because the progressives, or rather they were liberals at one point, were kind of the, okay, let's get along, let's compromise. And then essentially, and I liken it to where, when you'll have a guy and he's kind of the most extreme examples of male, chauvinism or whatever, and he's, goes around belching and drinking beer and just trying to pump and dump women, and essentially the protein fart lifestyle. And then oftentimes women will start emulating, they want to be equal to men, but instead of like I want to be equal to, I don't know, the guy who is a good citizen, contributes to his community, and it lives a proper lifestyle, they'll emulate the worst idealized, or really it's a negative ideal caricature of men. And they'll do the same thing, cover their body with tattoos, drink a lot, do drugs, have sex with a bunch of different people. And it's just the same thing where the Gingrich and Bush style politics, the liberals have started adopting it into the progressives where they don't want to agree on anything. They just scream you're a racist. They try to get you kicked off of, platforms, try to get you fired. Now you could say, well, yeah, but that's just politics. Conservatives don't really believe in that stuff. BS. Conservatives and their close cousins, the snakes in the grass called libertarians, have pushed for a long time what is known as right to work. Now, ostensibly, right to work is meant to get these lazy union workers out of the economy. But what right to work allows people to do, in effect, is it means you have no protections. If someone wants to get rid of you, it's at will and they can do so. There's no arbitration. There's no, well, what's your justification? Have they actually been a bad employee? And what right to work has allowed a lot of people to do is, oh, we saw this little joke you put on social media, you're fired. We saw that you have an offensive view, you're fired. Even if it has nothing to do with your job, you have no protections. The only real protections you have in this country, which I've observed, okay, is that if you meet a specific phenotype and you are a really lazy employee and you get fired, you can play the race card. That doesn't mean that everyone of a particular group is lazy. It just means that some people will play that, and that's the only real defense that exists. But as far as, well, I'm a good employee, I've been here for 10 years, I've done my work, and you're trying to get rid of me because I made a joke online. That's where conservative policies and libertarian policies have been so destructive, and that's why, if you notice, when they had the opportunity to crack down on the big tech, they refuse to do so because they don't really want any controls on these companies. And I called this out back in like 2018 in a video. I said we needed an employee bill of rights. We need to penalize companies that get rid of people just because they say, I don't like your politics or someone's pressuring you. And the conservatives, the libertarians, like, it's going to hurt the economy. It's not fair. Well, this is what you get. And now all of a sudden they're whining about they want regulation, they want an internet bill of rights. And you're saying, well, guess what? This is stuff people have been talking about. But at the same time, as far as Conservative Inc. and all these talking heads, cancel culture was not an issue until like a year or two ago. All of a sudden it's a big deal because it's suddenly been targeted towards conservatives. Well, it's like, hey, maybe for once you could think ahead. Otherwise, you're just really being a hypocrite, and it just shows that if those corporations, if society at large was more aligned with conservatism and you could use it towards liberals, you wouldn't really care about we need protections for liberals. That's ultimately the great tragedy of this debate over cancel culture. It's not based upon principle for most people. It's, I just want to be able to protect myself, and then if I have an opportunity, I can get back at them using the same methods.